Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of All at Once. If you are new here, welcome. Thank you for joining us. All at Once is a podcast for anyone interested in spirituality, inner growth, holistic health, and basically just anything esoteric along those lines. You understand it if you catch the vibe. And today I want to talk to you guys about something that I think a lot of us experience and we probably don't even realize that it's happening. This is when other people's energies are still penetrating our energetic field, even after we're no longer in contact with them. And this isn't just people, it can also be places, it can be jobs, it can be things, it can be literally anything. Everything we come into contact with creates an energetic cord, right? So our energy fields are these big bubbles, basically. And as we interact with other people, other places throughout our day, throughout our life, everything creates an energetic attachment. And as you kind of move forward and you're no longer using these things or frequenting these places, the cord can get smaller and kind of dwindle away. But what happens a lot of time, especially when it comes down to toxic relationships or narcissistic people or people, places, things where you had like a really intense experience, those cords get really big, really thick, and their energy can still kind of penetrate you even after the fact. We are going to be talking about cord cutting today and how you can remove these different energy cords out of your system and reclaim your own energy back. Cord cutting is one of the most powerful and potent energetic tools that you can use because it literally lets you cut off connection with the person or the place that's attached that cord and remove them out of your field and just disconnect completely. So I want to clarify, when I say a place, this can be a job, this can be a country. So say you had a job for a previous employer and you had a lot of really bad experiences there, you were burnt out, you felt overworked, whatever, and it kind of threw you off of your game and it kind of energetically messed you up and just tilted you off balance and you haven't been able to regain that since leaving that job, you can cut cords with that job and with that company. And you'll actually remove that energy that you experienced while in that job from your field and allow your field to clear again. This can be from literally anyone or anything. This can be your annoying coworkers that just bug you on and off all day. These can be the really random cashier at a store who is rude to you out of nowhere and you're stuck thinking about that interaction for the rest of the day, wondering what you did to set her off or what happened. And then of course, obviously it can be friendships, family members, relationships, all of those things, anything that kind of makes an impact on you, everything that we experience on a day-to-day basis, those will create cords. So some of these will fade away on their own. So say you just go on a holiday somewhere, you had a great time, you come home, you don't really think about it. The energetic cord from that place and most of the people that you interacted with will likely start to fade over time because they're no longer in your life. They're no longer in your presence, in your memory, and you're not constantly kind of thinking about them and going back to that time. Say there's a country where you had a really traumatic thing happen. So example, me with Costa Rica, that cord to Costa Rica is going to be really thick, right? It's going to be really big and it's going to stay there. It's not going to leave until you physically cut it because you're constantly being reminded of what happened in that country. You're constantly still living in that energy. You're still healing from that. And that cord's not going to go anywhere because it's still taking out your energy. It's still connected to you in that way. So like I said, cord cutting is a type of energy work and you can learn all about energy work in Starseed School. It's my online course. We have multiple weeks that go over specific energy work in general, energetic protection. There's a cord cutting meditation in there. I also sell a cord cutting meditation, a guided one in my Stan store just on its own if that's something you wanted to look into. But in this episode specifically, I'm going to be talking a lot about relationship energetic cords because that is something that I have so much experience with and that is my most recent experiences that I want to share with you. And I also think it'll be very relatable for a lot of you. I want to just show you, okay? Show you how intense and how powerful cord cutting can be. So I'm going to give you 3 examples within the last year, 2 years where I've used this and seen a massive, massive shift, okay? The first one was in Costa Rica. And for those of you who this is your first episode listening to the pod, I lived in Costa Rica for almost an entire year in 2023. And I was in a very toxic living environment. There's a lot of spiritual warfare happening. And it was a very traumatic time for me. You can go back and listen to the Costa Rica episode to get the entire lowdown on that. But just for some background on this, about 2 to 3 days before I left Costa Rica, I had asked the people I was living with, like, hey, I really need to do some inner work, some inner healing. Like, I want to do a solo mushroom trip. Would you guys mind just being out of the house for the day so I can kind of do this? Because obviously in Costa Rica, I'm not going to drive down the mountain, take mushrooms, and then drive home. I don't want to be operating a car. Even after it's out of my system, I would prefer not to, So I asked them if they could kindly leave, which they did. Very grateful for that. And I went on this solo mushroom journey. And it's nice because I didn't have to be inside. I could be outside. I was in the hammock. I was with the nature, but still on the property. And at one point, I was just pulled to go into my bed and rest. And I was like, okay, this is so interesting. I don't normally feel like this on these journeys, but let's see what the medicine has in store for me. And so I went and I laid down. And I want to preface, this is not a typical cord cutting situation. This was with the aid of the medicine and the medicine alerting me, like, you need to do this right now. Basically, I felt a tugging on my heart. It was almost like someone had a string attached to my skin and was like pulling it. And it was just like this tug back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And intuitively, I just knew that is a cord that needs to be cut. So I just took my arms, raised it in the air, and went snip. And I literally felt the cord release. It was honestly like a whole energetic wave had lifted off me, and I felt so peaceful after. And then when they came back the next day, they ended up staying overnight at the other house that we were renting. They came back and I could feel a distinct difference in the way he was treating me, his attitude towards me, the way he was speaking to me. His whole demeanor had shifted to a form of just detachment. Whereas before we were very attached, very connected. We have a very deep and loving relationship. It was completely cold. It was like that whole history of everything we had been through and what we had built wasn't even there. And the whole energetic persona of his actions and his energy towards me was completely different. And of course, at the time it hurt, but I was like, this is what I wanted. I cut the cord that was in my heart. Like, this is the goal so that it's easier for me to leave. This is what I need. Okay. Second example was after I had left Costa Rica and I was in Tulum. For those first 2 weeks that I was living in Tulum, I was waking up startled, in a state of panic, anxiety, and the first thoughts running through my head were, where is he? Is he okay? Did he sleep? Has he eaten? Is he alive? Those were my thoughts every single morning for 2 weeks straight, waking up. And I would have to kind of sit up and look around the room at my environment and be like, oh, wait, okay, I'm not there anymore. I'm in Tulum. He is no longer my responsibility. That I am not part of that life anymore. And I would need to take a couple deep breaths and just kind of calm my nervous system. And it was a really big sign for me that I needed to do a cord cutting. I was not in a grounded, safe energy because I was still energetically so deeply attached to him and everything we had gone through and all of the things that you move through when you're living with someone who has addiction struggles and is suicidal and all of these other things. Like, I was still so deeply attached into it. And so my friend and I went to the beach at the end of the 2 weeks. We went to the beach and I did a cord cutting down by the water. I had the water, I had my incense, I had a few other offerings, and I worked with the energy of the ocean to really just cut these cords. And once I did this, my whole field lightened. Again, I felt that kind of lighter sense of energy. I felt like I could finally take a deep breath again and just relax. And my sleeps and waking up were so much better after that. I actually got like deep rested sleeps and I would wake up feeling calm again. I didn't have that anxious energy waking up, forgetting where I was and thinking I was still back in that house. And this next story I'm going to tell you, just remember, guys, when you cut cords, it is not for the faint of heart, okay? Your relationships with these people can change very drastically, very quickly, and you need to be prepared for that. It might hurt in the moment, but remember that this is the whole goal of cord cutting, okay? This past summer, I became really good friends with this guy. We were hanging out like 4 to 5 times a week and we got really close. And when we first started hanging out, I could see that he was emotionally unavailable amongst a bunch of other things. And right away in my head, I just classed him in friends, like nothing is ever going to happen there. I can see that we're incompatible in these different ways, friends, And as we continued hanging out, my energy towards him started to shift. And I couldn't figure out why. I was starting to feel more and more attached to him, but I still knew I didn't want to be with him. So I was kind of like, what is going on? And I had to really look at myself, do the inner work, and realize that it wasn't him that I was attached to. It was who I became when I was with him that I was enjoying and that I became attached to. And so in my mind, I rationalized it as, oh, well, I can only be this type of person when I'm with him. So then in turn, like I need to be with him all the time, you know? So it was like a whole other inner work journey that I went on. But point being, once I realized this, I knew right away I had to do a cord cutting. I was like, okay, this is not healthy for me anymore. I need to cut the cords, just like the romantic energy, like feelings that I'm having, not the friendship cords. So I like went through, I did my guided meditation, and I set the intention of only cutting those types of cords and allowing all of the friendship cords to stay. Guys, when I tell you, his energy shifted overnight. It was like we weren't even friends anymore. He dropped me like a piece of garbage on the side of the road. It was actually insane. Insane, the difference that this made. He wouldn't talk to me anymore, wouldn't hang out with me anymore, would barely text me. By the time, like in the span of those 2 weeks from when I did this to when I left to go to Bali, we were only seeing each other in group situations. And even then we were barely speaking. And then I left for Bali and we haven't spoken since. And at first it was really hard because I was like, how can someone just do that? Can someone just drop someone so easily after you've been together every single day almost and like hanging out, being so close, having this really deep friendship for like 3 months, to just overnight drop you? And then I had to remind myself, like, wait, this is what I wanted. Technically, this is what I asked for. I wanted to cut the cords. I wanted to remove that attachment. And when you work with energy, you set your intention, and just because you have an idea of what you think it's going to look like doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen. I had this idea of, okay, if I cut the cords, we can still be friends, and I'll drop the attachment, I'll drop whatever else is coming through, and we can just have a normal friendship. But the energy was like, no, that's not how this works. If you guys stay friends, you're going to stay attached. So it cut it exactly how it needed to go for me to be able to detach myself and move on and find that light, that energy of how I was in that friendship within myself apart from him. Okay. So this is why I warned you that this is not for the faint of heart. You have to be ready for whatever situation comes forward, however the universe wants to bring that energy cutting through, because it might not always be the easiest thing to deal with. And so I think that this is a really important episode for so many of us, because there's a lot of us who don't even realize that other people's energies are still penetrating our fields, even years later. If you have an ex that completely broke your heart, left you crumbled in a ball on the floor, and you felt like you couldn't live life anymore, and maybe it's been 3 or 4 years, but you still find yourself thinking about them now and then, like, there's cords there you need to cut. They're still in your energetic field. They have not left yet. And having other people's energy in our fields like that can actually impact us on a day-to-day basis without us even realizing, because there's so many different ways that people affect us and shift our energy, just even subconsciously, when you're with them, when you're around them, when you're in relationships with them, and we don't even realize it's happening. So as we separate ourselves from that person, that job, whatever it is, and move forward with our life, those behaviors and those energetic shifts are still within us, and we don't even realize it. So as an example, if you had a partner that made you feel really safe, really grounded, really secure, and then as soon as you guys broke up or parted ways, whatever it was, you can no longer feel those things. You always kind of feel unstable. You never really feel safe. No matter what you do, you can't just find that sense of groundedness again. Or if you find that it's for like fleeting moments and then it disappears again, that's because they likely still have a cord attached to your root chakra, which symbolizes grounding and security and feeling safe. And that means that you need to go in and do a cord cutting and cut that cord so that you can gather your energy back and remind yourself and create that feeling of safety, of security, of groundedness within yourself, and not necessarily be relying on his energy to feel that. I say his because I'm a girl, but their energy to feel that. Okay. And so that's an example. But cords are not always attached to your chakras. They can be attached to literally any single part of your body. When I was going through on the beach doing that water cord cutting ceremony to my friend back in Costa Rica, The amount of cords I had on my body from that man was actually insane. They were in my shoulder, they were in my lower back, they were on my feet. Like they were everywhere. And I remember going through and doing that full cord cutting and just being shocked at how many there were attached to me. And some of them were really little, like I could just snip them easily and they were gone. Some of them were like big honkin' tree trunks that it took a lot of energetic visualization and power to really cut through and remove. And I go full steam. I cut it, I burn it, I like take it out from its roots, from my energetic system. Like I do whatever I can to make sure that that thing will not reattach. And so it took me a solid, like I want to say 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, however long it was, to go through the entire body. I scanned my chakras first, and then I scanned from head to toe every single part of my body and removed every single cord because they can attach anywhere. The meditation that I have in my stand store, which will also be in the description, walks you through the entire chakra system and then does a full body scan so that when you are doing this, you can make sure that you have covered every single part of your body and that there's no cords left. You might even resonate with what I said about having a cord attached to one of your chakras and not think that you have them anywhere else on your body. But like I said, like we don't always realize how many cords are attached and how their energy is penetrating our system because we're so used to being a certain way, feeling a certain way. We like it's in our subconscious. We have no idea. So it is really important, even if you're not going to use the meditation that I have available, if you're doing this yourself, to make sure you scan your entire body and get everything that's there and just be open to what comes up, because even if you're not expecting it, if you see a random cord out of nowhere when you're visualizing and you're like, whoa, I wasn't expecting one to be there, don't ignore it. It's coming up because it's there and you need to remove it. So here are some signs that you still have energetic cords in your field that you no longer need. The first one is you can't stop thinking about them. They pop up in your day, little things remind you of them. Maybe a song comes on that you used to listen to together and you see it as some sort of synchronicity or a sign to go back to them. No. That is a sign that they're still penetrating your energetic field. Second is they keep popping up on socials. Everything in this world is energy. So if they're constantly coming up in your recommended, cord cut. If they're constantly the first name you see when you're seeing the likes on someone else's photo or the comments or people are posting them in their stories, whatever it is, that is a sign that they're still way too energetically connected to your field. The third one is people around you keep bringing them up. They keep popping up in stories or experiences or whatever it is. They're penetrating your social field for some reason. That is another sign. The fourth is they keep contacting you. So maybe they're consistently texting you, DMing you, even if it's just sending a like to your story, like they're still trying to contact you in any way, shape, or form. That's a big sign that they're still in your field, especially when you've tried to cut them off and go non-contact. Fifth sign is that you dream about them a lot. So if they're constantly coming up in your dreams or you're talking to them in your meditations or whatever it is, they're still energetically connected to you in a very deep way. And the last one is if they keep finding a way to weasel back into your life. So whether that means after a couple months they reach out and they want to get back together or they want to apologize or like whatever it is, if you're very like on and off, you keep coming back and leaving and coming back and leaving, they will always try and find a way to come back into your life. That's because you're still energy connected. So these are all signs that you need to do a cord cutting. And I want to say, you guys, the most important thing, if you take nothing else away from this episode, is make sure that when you do your cord cutting, you are going into it in a very neutral or loving energetic state. You should not be doing a cord cutting if you're going into it with anger or resentment or ill wishes and wishing harm upon them. Everything that you send out into the world is karmic energy and it will come back to you. So make sure that if you're doing your cord cutting, you're sending them love, you're sending them light, you're wishing them the best, and you're removing the cord because it's no longer needed for you at this time. You're not sending it away because you hate them. You're not sending it away because they're an asshole, whatever it is. You're sending it away because it's just no longer of benefit to you and you wish them the best. If you do want to do a cord cutting, but you still feel very emotional about the interaction, about the person, about whatever it is, that is your sign to just take a pause, take a breather. Don't do the cord cutting yet, but first journal, work through the emotions, work through the triggers, the trauma, try and do some healing work first so that you can get to that place of at least neutrality before you go and do the cord cutting. If you're going to do a cord cutting and you just feel very sad, that's okay because you're not wishing harm upon them, but you do need to make sure that with your intent, you're not secretly hoping that it doesn't work and that they come back. You know, like sometimes when we do things and we feel really sad, we can do like, okay, I know this is good for me, so I'm going to visualize and I'm going to cut it, blah, blah, blah. But in the back of your mind, you're like, I don't want to lose them. That energy will prevent it from working. So you can feel sad, but make sure that you actually do want to cut the cords if you're going into it. But any type of anger, resentment, any of those kind of like aggression feelings where you want to send harm their way of some sort, do your healing work first. The other option is to find an energetic healer and book a therapy session with them, an energetic therapy session, and have them conduct the cord cutting for you because they can come at it from a neutral place. So that is it today for the cord cutting episode. Please, you guys, let me know if you have any questions. Write them below in the comment box. DM me on Instagram at iam.alexischristine. And if you guys are interested in all of the energetic work that you can find in Starseed School or just the cord cutting meditation on its own, I will have both of those links down in the description box below. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a review, share with a friend, just get the word out there so that we can help as many people on their journey as possible. I hope you guys have the most amazing day ever, and I will talk to you soon.